My name is Connor O'Gara. I've been at New Hope for Kids since 2018 as a grief facilitator. And in the summer of 2026, I started as a program assistant. What kept me coming back to New Hope for Kids was just seeing the way that kids responded to different grief activities, being able to interact with them, and just see that this was a community that was created. And it was honestly a community that I didn't really know existed. And so just being able to understand that there is a place for kids that are dealing with circumstances that aren't necessarily unique, it just gave me that feeling that this was a sense of community that was truly special. What surprised me the most about my experience was seeing the impact that a grief facilitator can have just by listening, because kids want to be listened to. They don't necessarily want to be fixed. They don't necessarily want to be scolded for doing this or that. They want to be listened to. And I think being able to connect with them through that way made New Hope for Kids so much more approachable. I think the biggest obstacle I've encountered was just learning how to reflect. Being able to go through the process to become a grief facilitator is one thing. Being physically here at New Hope for Kids and being able to use reflecting skills is different. Going through the shadowing program was super beneficial because you see the difference between what it's like to reflect with people that are doing the grief facilitator process with you is different than doing so with someone who is experiencing grief and it's a kid who's experiencing grief. So I think that having to mentally prepare for that week in, week out, that's why we do centering. I think that was something that I really had to overcome early on because it wasn't in my natural, my natural like thought process to go about reflecting. And I really took a lot of pride in trying to figure out how to get mentally right to be able to come into New Hope for Kids. When I took part in the virtual program that we began during COVID, and I was the leader of the teens group most nights that I showed up. And at that point, I think a lot of teens were very burnt out on Zoom calls, and you could tell that there were definitely some teens that you weren't necessarily going to get their full undivided attention. But then I remembered seeing teens that really started to bond towards the end of the school year, and they had a certain rapport where it was cool to see them interact with activities, and we would put on a playlist and they would talk about music. They'd always want to add songs to the playlist. And I thought, these teens aren't necessarily in the same place at the same time, and they've probably got a million other reasons to be elsewhere. But seeing them just kind of be that community that they needed for each other, even though they were far away from each other, I thought that was a moment in which I thought, my presence here, even on this Zoom call, it is certainly important. Try and find the reasons why you want to be a part of New Hope for Kids. I recommend doing so if you understand what New Hope for Kids is about and the mission of trying to help kids who are experiencing a very significant tragedy in their lives. I would say try and figure out what your goal is. Do you want to feel a sense of community? New Hope for Kids certainly provides that. Are you trying to work through your own grief? I'd say maybe New Hope for Kids isn't the best thing for you at this point, but New Hope for Kids for me personally did that, and it did so in a way that allowed me to give back to the community. It allowed me to understand and process my own grief when that time was ready. And I would say that make sure that you are in the right headspace to go about this, because this is an organization that can offer a whole lot to kids who need it. And if you are in the right headspace to be able to take on an opportunity like that, it is a unique set of circumstances, but it is certainly something that is very much needed. And getting all that help from grief facilitators is certainly something that allows New Hope to be able to go. So I fully recommend this experience, having gone through it 8 years ago.